production, peaceful production. I am overwhelmed each time I study or teach a course that deals with Greek mythology, how persistent these conflicts are.
After triumphing over the Titans, the great god Zeus marries Metis, a Titan herself, and therefore his aunt. Eventually, they have a daughter who bursts fully grown and armed from his forehead. This is Athena, goddess of warriors. Other gods and goddesses enter the world, each with different functions. They all have, however, one thing in common, an attribute which sets them apart from virtually all other divinities in the ancient world. Their images are human.
If you think of Egyptian religion with its gods having animal heads, various animal bodies, or Near Eastern, Akkadian, Mesopotamian, Hittite religion, where you see divinities associated with lions and other fierce animals, the Greeks' decision to somehow represent the gods as being like Greeks is really an innovation. And we're not really sure where it came from.
When you think about divinity, you're talking about the unknown. And you really can only talk about the unknown in terms of the known. In the Hebrew Bible, in Genesis, it says, God came down and he walked in the Garden of Eden in the cool of the evening. It's almost impossible to talk about divinities without doing something like that. Xenophanes said if horses could draw, horses would draw their gods as horses.
In Homer's telling, it is only after the gods and goddesses take up residence on Mount Olympus that the story of human beings begins to unfold. The Judeo-Christian account of the world's beginning culminates in God's creation of man, who is given dominion over all the other creatures on earth. However, the ancient Greeks believed the birth of humans is of little importance to the cosmos.
Although the Greeks had a human-centered universe, their view of man was almost as an afterthought. He was a smaller creature in the universe, something certainly lesser than the gods. And therefore the creation of humans had to take a second or third place down the line in the Greek world of the cosmos and the Olympian deities. So why was the creation of man given such a small role in the creation of the universe?
It could be that Greeks just assumed that human beings were always around, that human beings are in fact so important that there was never a stage when they didn't exist. It's still something of a mystery.
I like to think that Greek myth reflects a certain understanding by the Greeks of humans' place in the world, that humans are not the center of things, that there's a whole wealth of the created world into which humans have to fit. This is a great contrast with a number of other cultures and belief systems.
As with the dawn of the gods, Greek mythology contains different tellings of the creation of man. In none of them are mankind's beginnings auspicious.
We lived like ants in the ground, and we couldn't read, and we didn't know the seasons, and we didn't know the weather, and we couldn't think, and we couldn't hear. We were just despicable worms and worth despising.
In Homer's version of the creation of humans, the god Prometheus forms the first man out of mud and breathes life into him. In Hesiod's telling, Zeus creates succeeding races of men: gold, silver, bronze, and iron. It seems that each race symbolizes differing aspects of the human condition. The first race of men is made of gold. Their lives are easy, their crops abundant. They literally feast with the gods.
In the beginning, there was a golden age, and people lived on the earth, and all the crops grew of their own accord, and everybody was good and everybody was just. And those people, after a while, just disappeared.
The golden race appeared to have lived a perfect existence, seemingly in paradise. And yet, this race vanishes without explanation. In the biblical account of paradise, life's hardships are seen as a result of Adam and Eve's fall from grace in the Garden of Eden. For the golden race of men in Greek mythology, there is no such explanation for their disappearance. The reason for their fate remains a mystery.
The Greek system, in which humans and their creation are not really a topic of concern, is so different from what you find in Genesis, where we have this focus on the creation of the first man. Of course, in Genesis, it's related to the further story, what happened after the first man and woman disobeyed God. In Greek myth, disobeying the gods is not such a big deal as it is in Genesis.
So why doesn't Hesiod have an answer? Or why doesn't Hesiod give an answer to why the golden race came to an end? With the Judeo-Christian myth of the fall from the Garden of Eden, because that clearly was the fault of Adam and Eve. And what that means is there is no really good explanation for why the world is so difficult now, why humans can't have an easy time.
After the golden race becomes extinct, Zeus fashions men from silver. But this race is not very evolved.
The Silver Age people were babies forever, and then they had this short period of maturity, and then they had a horrible old age. And they disappeared under the earth. They were more arrogant and did not worship the gods sufficiently.
Next come men of bronze, who exterminate themselves through constant warfare. Eventually, the race of men who live today appears. They are said to be men of iron.
So basically, this story of degeneration has moved to the present age, where actually it shows a balance in these various views of the important things in life for the Greeks, namely your attitudes to the gods and your attitudes towards warfare and fighting for your city-state and how you can get along or not get along with each other.
Interestingly, all these stories account for the creation of only half the human race, man. Woman is created as an affliction, a punishment, and all because of a trick.
The first woman was sent to the earth as a punishment to mankind. Now, this sounds incredibly misogynistic, and it was an incredibly misogynistic story on the part of Hesiod, who told this in 700 BC. But the story goes that one of the gods, Prometheus, tried to trick the master and king of all the cosmos, Zeus.
Prometheus is a trickster god. He's a smart god. Prometheus means forethought. He killed a sheep, and he took the sheep, and he took all the good, wonderful meat, and he put it inside the disgusting belly. And he took all the bare bones, and he wrapped them up in the beautiful white shining fat, which is, of course, what burns in a sacrifice. And he presented these two bundles to Zeus, and he said, "You pick."
Zeus knows he is being tricked by Prometheus, who represents humankind. In retaliation, Zeus punishes man by taking away fire. Prometheus, in return, steals the fire back and gives it to humanity.
And by stealing and giving men this gift of fire, he was therefore punished indirectly by having a woman created who was given to human beings. Now, Zeus didn't just sort of give this evil thing, as he thought, to mankind. He called it a beautiful evil.
she's one you can't do without. She's a kalon kakon in the terms of the Greek, a beautiful bad thing. And so Greek myth, Greek poetry likes to have it both ways. Women are beautiful, women are something irresistible. At the same time, women make you work, and so they're a bad thing.
I do think that throughout Greek mythology, you see a repeated emphasis on the threat that women pose. The threat they pose because of your need for them, the need to have children, and the very real fear of losing control because of desire. Overwhelming feminine sexuality threatens men.
Zeus does not give just any woman to men. Indeed, he gives men a kalon kaikon, a beautiful evil. Her name is Pandora, and she comes with a jar full of evils to let loose in the world. When we return, why hope is in Pandora's jar. The first woman in Greek mythology is Pandora, and her story echoes that of Eve and the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. Given a jar and told not to open it, Pandora does so anyway. And all the evils of the world are let loose. All sickness, pain, suffering, disease. Too late, she closes the jar, leaving only one thing behind: hope. But what is hope doing in Pandora's jar full of evils?